I would like to introduce the brief introduction, Lauren St. John. Lauren is team leader, USDA NRCS Plant Materials Center in Aberdeen, Idaho. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank Tom Jones for organizing the Native Plant Summit and providing me an opportunity to come and visit with you folks. I want to tell you about a pollinator planting demonstration that we did at the Plant Materials Center. And this is a nice picture of a honeybee resting on a firecracker penstemon that was taken by Jim Kane, who's with the ARS bee lab down in Logan. Since 1985, there's been a program in place with USDA called the Conservation Reserve Program. Some of you are probably familiar with it, others may not be, but in a nutshell, it's a program that provides technical assistance, cost share, and land rental to owners and operators of highly erodible cropland to take that land out of annual crop production. And in the 2008 Farm Bill, there was a designation for pollinator habitat within the CRP program. And basically, landowners are required to establish seedings that include 9 flowering species, and native grasses cannot make up more than 25% of the mix. And of those 9 flowering species, they need to have 3 that bloom early in the season, 3 that bloom during the mid part of the season, and 3 that bloom in the late part of the season. And kind of on a little side note, here in Idaho, because of the lack of the availability of a lot of flowering species for really dry areas, they had a special situation where they would allow them to include 5 pollinator species covering at least 2 of the flowering periods, and that's for areas with in areas with less than 16 inches of annual precipitation. So at one of our farms that's owned by the Idaho Fish and Game, part of our basically our rental agreement with them is to plant standing wildlife food plots each year. And in 2010, we had a 5-acre field of corn that we planted for wildlife cover and food. And we thought this might be a good place to start working on and looking at pollinator plantings that are being put in place in CRP. So we came up with this seed mix. The grasses include Anatome, blue bunch wheatgrass, magnar, basin wild rye, and Sherman baked bluegrass. The numbers in parentheses behind the common name is the first set of parentheses is the percentage of the mix with the 25% grass component, which is a requirement of the CRP program. And then the second number in parentheses is at a 50% grass mix. And we wanted to look at, being how we're old grass farmers, we weren't really sure that 25% grass was enough. And so we wanted to look at and compare a 25% grass mix with a 50% grass mix. The forbs that we included in the mix were Great Northern, Western Yarrow, Apar, Blue Flax, Dawn, Yellow Alfalfa, Delar, Small Brunette, Esky, Sandfoin, Common Sunflower, and Common Tansy Aster. And the percentage, the numbers in behind the common names is the same situation as with the grasses. At the 25% grass mix, we put in 5% of Great Northern, and then at the 50% grass mix, it was only made up 2.5%. So basically we cut the four percentages in half. And we're hoping to end up with something that maybe looks something like this. We mowed the field early in May, sprayed Roundup, and then planted the field. And this was in May of 2011. We did an alternate row seeding. Basically, we're doing a broadcast seeding and a drill seeding in the same pass. The rows that you see, the big packer wheels behind, those are the broadcast rows. We're just dribbling the seed onto the soil surface. And then the alternate rows, every other row is drilled. And we put the sandberg and yarrow, flax, alfalfa, and tansy ester in the broadcast portion, and then we drilled the blue bunch wheatgrass, basin wild rye, small burnet, sainfoin, and sunflower. And then I wanted to mention that this drill is owned by the Forest Service Rocky Mountain Research Station, and we had been doing quite a bit of seeding work in cooperation with Nancy Shaw, so we had it there and made it and used it for this project. So this is what the field looked like about 2 months after seeding. We had mowed the site probably 3 or 4 times to control broadleaf weeds. But at this point, our major weed is witchgrass, or Panicum capillare. And just for your information, it doesn't really matter at this point, but on the west side of the field is the 25% grass mix, and on the east half of the field is the 50% grass mix. And then this is what it looked like at the end of the first growing season. It's visually dominated by sunflower. What we do as far as evaluation is we lay out a 200-foot transect in each of the seedings and do a frequency grid at 20-foot intervals 10 times to get a relative plant density per square foot. And I hope you can see these numbers. This is the data from the establishment year in 2011. You'll notice that there's zeros behind the grasses. The reason for that is they were either really very small or just almost impossible to find, so we didn't count them. You can see that in the 25% grass mix, we had about almost 2.8 weeds per square foot. In the 50% grass mix, we had about 2.4 weeds per square foot. Of the target species that we planted, we're looking at about 0.6 plants per square foot in the 25% grass mix and about 0.3 plants per square foot in the 50% grass mix. And within the 25% grass mix, small burnet was showing up the most. And then in the 50% grass mix, sainfoin was showing up the most. And then witchgrass was eating our lunch. Then in early spring 2012, we mowed the site to knock down those big sunflowers. I wanted to mention that we're irrigating this a little bit. The species in this mix need about a minimum of 14 inches of annual precip. At Aberdeen, we get about 9 inches of annual precip, and so we're irrigating it once in June, or once in late May, early June, then again in mid to late June, and then if we need to, we'll irrigate it in July, and then that's it. But basically we needed to get rid of those sunflower stalks so that we could get the wheel line to roll through. This is kind of a close-up of the vegetation out there. You can see sunflower, sainfoin, I think there's a little bit of flax, a lot of sunflower, some red root pigweed. So that's kind of what it looked like in probably about mid to late June. Then here's our data from 2012. Our weed species densities are starting to drop. Sunflower is really coming on strong again. It's reseeded itself. I think it's really interesting to look at the grass numbers. The 50% grass mix is almost exactly double of what the 25% grass mix is. And witchgrass has dropped out, but we've picked up some other weeds. Some of the new weeds in 2012 include Canada thistle, dandelion, kochia, south thistle, cheatgrass, salsify, spear saltbush, cinquefoil, hound's tongue, bull thistle, musk thistle, and mint. And basically we're spot spraying to control the noxious weeds. Just kind of a summary, the first growing season, we had lots of annual weeds. We did multiple mowing, not very good pollinator value. However, the annual sunflower late in the season provided pollinator value. The second growing season, no mowing. We had definitely a lot more flowering, pollinator activity. The annual sunflower reestablished. I don't know that I'd ever recommend sunflower again, or else put it at a really low rate. We've got a lot of deer use on the sainfoin, small burnet, prickly lettuce, just a ton of birds, and then we're having to deal with the noxious weed control by spot spraying. We had a field tour in August last year. Some of the area field office, NRCS field offices came out to see what we were up to and talk about management issues and establishment issues and pollinator plantings. And then I wanted to point out that we've got quite a toolbox of technical notes from the Aberdeen Plant Materials Center, and the website down there below gives the address where you can get those. I have some handouts on the back that would have that information too, but this technical note number 2A, Plants for Pollinators in the Intermountain West. The major authors on this are Derek Tilley, our agronomist, and then our esteemed retired plant materials specialist, Dan Ogle, somewhere in the room. Thank you. But this technical note has a lot of information on habitat requirements, considerations, a lot of plant species descriptions and photographs, plant lists based upon different precipitation zones with the flowering color, the flowering period, and recommended seeding rates. And so that's a really nice publication. And to wrap things up, just to give you an overview, the CRP program within the United States, the total CRP acreage is about 27 million acres. And within overall nationally, there's about 54,000 acres that have been signed up or planted for pollinator habitat. And then here in Idaho, there's about 2,100 acres that have been signed up and or seeded. So I thank you for your time, and if you ever want to come visit us or contact us, feel free. We'd love to visit with you or help you or show you around. Thanks.
Any questions for Lauren?
Lauren, have you guys done any work on drier area pollinator?
The question is if we have done any work on drier area pollinator plantings, and no, we haven't.
The last slide about the nationwide program for CRP pollination had fairly small acreage sizes, especially for Idaho, the number of farms that were signed for contracts as compared to the total number of acres. Is that pretty well true of the entire CRP program for this particular practice? That's one question. The second question is, do you measure the actual pollinators?
The first question is basically pollinator habitat is a small component of the CRP program. Yeah, it is. It's expensive to establish. It's also quite a mind change for a lot of farmers to deal with these kind of plantings. They're used to, you know, grass seedings or things that are really nice and clean. And pollinator habitat is a whole different story. Let's see, the second question. Oh, what kind of insect populations do you find? I don't know. What I'd really like to find is an entomologist or a entomology student somewhere in eastern Idaho that would come out and do an inventory for us, and I think that'd be really nice information to have.
One more question. You guys decided to broadcast the forbs. Why did you decide to do that over drilling?
The question is, why did we broadcast the forbs versus drilling? All of those species are typically broadcast planted or very shallow planted because they're so small, and they need to be planted either on the surface or just really close to the surface.
Is there one more question?
Do any of these plants ever call for shrubs, flowering shrubs, wood shrubs?
The question is, does the pollinator habitat allow for flowering shrubs? Yes, I think it does. I don't know of anybody that's doing that, but I think they are. That is available to do.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.